It is the legislature that passes laws, approves loans and grants for developmental projects. The Parliamentary Christian Fellowship, an interdenominational movement, was formed to intercede for Ghana's parliament. And according to the movement, it is only through prayers and blessings from God that Parliament can execute its mandate.
Recognizing the need for God's presence in their day-to-day activities in Parliament, a group of parliamentarians and some staff of Parliament formed the Parliamentary Christian Fellowship some 17 years ago. Members of the fellowship meet every week and pray for God's intervention in their work. Parliament is one of the three arms of government, and its contribution is vital to all facets of the economy. The president of the International Gospel Outreach, a close associate of the Parliamentary Christian Fellowship, Reverend Kingsley Armstrong, praised members of the fellowship for taking up the responsibility to intercede for Ghana's parliament.
But I know one thing, that God has many people that love him here in Ghana. But Ghana's gone through some difficult times. The CD is not as strong as it was. People don't know what is happening. But I want to tell you today, that's not the end of the story.
The president of the Parliamentary Christian Fellowship, Mr. Geshen Bediame, said God has been faithful to the fellowship.
Compared to other parliaments of the world, we only use our mouth. You have never seen anybody exchanging blows or throwing chairs at themselves. We are very, very cordial with each other on both sides. So I think God has done so much for us and is protecting us too.
Parliamentary Christian Fellowship is open to all Christians working in the Parliament House.
A 17-year-old physically challenged person, Ronald Kofi Ashale of the Begro Junior High School in the Fantiakwa district of the Eastern Region, has been able to go through his basic education successfully. Kofi Ashale has adenoid cerebral palsy, a movement disorder which has affected the control of his arms and legs. His condition never stopped him to pursue his education. He joined his able friends to write this year's BEC.
Ronald Kofi Ashley started his primary education at Bergro Salvation Army Rehabilitation Center at the age of 7. Later on, he was integrated into the mainstream school at Salvation Army Primary School. Ronald's condition has been described by doctors as cerebral palsy. It is a disease which affects one's speech, brain as well as movement. Mindful of this, the Ghana Education Service requested for a special room and a tape recorder to assess him. One has to read the questions for Ronald, and he will answer it verbally for the invigilator to share the answer sheet on his behalf.
The device helps to express. Listen carefully. The device helps to express A, the silence of the sea. B, the whiteness of the food. C, the fairness of the weather. D, the smoothness of the movement.
Can you read
the poem again?
After his first paper, Ronald was hopeful that he will get aggregate 6. The Bergro District Director of Education, Teresa Adakwa, urged parents not to neglect children who have challenges like Ronald.
Anybody who has such a child should not hide the child, but rather bring the child to school to be trained. I was even fascinated about the way he was answering the questions.
Ronald is the first physically challenged person in the district and second person in the country to undergo this type of basic education certificate examination process.
Interesting. A biodiversity and afforestation project, the Vedo platform aimed at consolidating biodiversity conservation and promoting sustainable livelihood on the Vedo range, has been launched at Amejope in the whole West District of the Volta region. The project aims at improving the quality of life of the fringe dwellers. Under the project, 8 dedicated NGOs are working in 40 stakeholding communities to reverse the degradation and to restore the biodiversity and ecological setup in the area with support from the UNDP's Global Environment Facility and the Japanese government.
Veto is part of the transboundary mountain range referred to as Togwa Takra Mountains or the Equiapim Togoland Range, which extends from Ibri in Ghana to Atakra in Benin. Veto Range, which in the past portrayed the cultural heritage of the communities located around it, gave uniqueness to the Volta region. However, for more than 4 decades now, the Veto ecosystem has been degraded as a result of deforestation, with its accompanying loss of biodiversity, uncontrolled soil erosion, degradation of watersheds and drying. This has brought abject poverty to the people. The attempt to reverse the degradation started on the Afajatu-Agumacha range by the people of Bledi and Fodomahon, with the Ghana Wildlife Society providing technical direction. 2 years ago, 2 NGOs carried out a study, and this has yielded positive results. 40 communities will now benefit from the project. The benefits include the establishment of small agro-processing of fruits like banana, orange, mango, pea, pineapple, the growing of non-timber forest products such as Xylopia monodera and Piper nigrum, referred in ever as Agumatakwi, Echo, Ayiku and Kale, as well as making the area an ecotourism and cultural destination. The Chief of Amajopa, Okusie Achimfoli, commended the NGOs for their collaboration and pledged on behalf of the 40 beneficiary communities of the cooperation and collaboration. The Executive Director and Interim Chairman of the Veto Platform, Ken Kinney, urged government to see the Togo Atakra or the Veto Range as a heritage that needs to be protected and developed for all Ghanaians to benefit.
This year's Basic Education Certificate Examination BCE took off successfully in the Ashanti region, with a few cases of candidate absenteeism recorded at some of the centers without any reasons given. Significantly, for the first time in many years in the Kumasi metropolis, there are more females sitting for the exams than males.
A total of 83,859 candidates from both public and private junior high schools registered for this year's BEC across the Ashanti region. The Kumasi metropolis has the highest number of candidates of 21,935, with more girls than boys. There are 11,404 girls compared to 10,529 boys writing the examination at 320 designated centers. It was realized that even though the detailed police personnel at those centers were far away, the candidates and the officials comported themselves in accordance with the regulations of the examination. At the Kumasi Anglican SHS, where candidates from a number of schools were writing their first paper, 4 of the registered candidates, all girls, were absent, but the officials said they were not aware of the reasons for their absence. At the Kumasi Technical Institute, where a total of 995 candidates were to write their exams, the supervisor, Dr. Abeku Apri, said 6 of the candidates, made up of 2 girls and 4 boys, were absent. Apart from that, everything went on smoothly. Some of the candidates who spoke to our news team said they were relieved after writing their paper.
When entering the room, we entered with a little bit tension in us, but after the writing it, we find out that it's not that difficult, but it's everything that the teachers have taught us that came, so we find it cool.
When I was entering, I was panicking. And when the invigilator put down the papers, I panicked then. I remember what my headmistress told me. When you just enter and they put the paper down, you have to make sure that you read it and understand what the question means, and then you answer the question. But it was cool for me.
The Ashanti Regional Director of Education, Mr. Kofi Safo Kantanka, said the police personnel are not meant to intimidate candidates but detailed to the centers to ensure security of the exam materials. He expressed satisfaction with the conduct of the exams.
The atmosphere seemed relaxed. I haven't observed any intimidating atmosphere. The vigilators and students are heartily going about their business, and if not for anything, I can safely conclude that the students are very well prepared to brace the storm, and that is why they are not leaving any stone unturned to get the best for this year.
On his part, the Deputy Ashanti Regional Minister, Mr. John Alexander Akon, was happy about the number of female candidates writing the BEC in the region, especially in Kumasi.
We should get a reflection on the result eventually, because atmosphere determines a lot. except those who may not have learnt. I want to believe that they've done very well, and it's going to help us.
Meanwhile, the basic education certificate examination took off last Monday without any hitches in the Second Takrady metropolis. However, according to GBC 24, a female candidate was prevented from writing the examination because she was pregnant. A total of 7,233 candidates registered to write the BEC in 18 centres in the Second Takrady metropolis. The Western Regional Minister, Mr. Paul Evans Edu, his deputy, Mr. Alfred Eko Jan, and his Regional Director of Education, Neelante Cleland, visited some of the centres to ascertain the status of the exams. At the GSTS centre, 2 candidates were absent with 1 reported dead. The Hunterman SHS centre recorded 1 absentee, while the Archbishop Porter Girls SHS had 4 absentees, 2 males and 2 females. Only 1 female candidate was absent at the Fijai SHS centre, with St. John's centre recording 4 absentees. It was at the Shama SHS centre that the head teacher of the Prophet Boatim Preparatory School at Apimenim near Shama prevented a female candidate from writing the examination because she was pregnant and also missed a greater session of the terminal work. Mr. Atu Kwamina Eshan of the school explained the situation.
Actually, on them, but I share pregnancy no kitchen now the same time on school and see the main motive in the school.
The regional minister, Mr. Paul Evans Edu, who was obviously not enthused about the situation, directed the regional director of education to deal with the situation.
I think the GES and WAC will have to come out clearly with a circular to all the headmasters and the district directorate and regional director of education so that we know our way out.
2 of the candidates, Ms. Laura Adade of the Jumo Methodist School and Master Elvis Salam of the VRA International School at Abazi, told GBC 24 about the exams.
You're still watching News Hour live on GBC 24. We're taking a short break. Business follows.
It's business time by courtesy of Vanguard Assurance and Barclays. I'm Esther Edu. The Deputy Governor of the Bank of Uganda, Dr. Louis Kasakendi, has warned that 12 African countries face the risk of filing for HIPC if urgent steps are not taken to address the debt volumes of these countries. Speaking at the African Growth Forum, Dr. Kasakendi said the debt to GDP ratios of these countries exceeds 40%.
The common thread that runs through many economies on the African continent includes high fiscal deficit, a narrow tax base, and inadequate infrastructure to support growth. These challenges continue to put pressure on the pocket of these countries, especially at a time that they are transiting from lower middle income to fully fledged middle income status. Donors are reducing their support. Africa received a fair share of financial bruises as prices of commodities on the international market continue to plummet. At an African Growth Forum organized by the International Growth Center, the governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Kofi Wampa, noted that Ghana lost $1.3 billion in export receipts due to a slide in the price of Ghana's major exports, cocoa and gold.
Although commodities provide added boost to growth, they also make countries vulnerable to short-term macroeconomic challenges, especially during periods of price volatilities. Ghana's case is particular here, and I'm sure a number of African countries suffer similar fates.
Narrating the Ghana economic challenge story, a Deputy Minister of Finance, Kesola Tufosin, said, despite the shocks, Ghana has what it takes to scale over the challenges.
We know we are very much confronted with a situation, a fiscal constraint situation like this, so we had to respond appropriately with fiscal measures and fiscal policy. So we had a number of policies. We introduced revenue enhancing measures. We did expenditure rationalization measures, and we also responded with debt management measures. And we realized that, again, there are items that are very structural, so we have to deal with it from the structural point of view.
The Deputy Governor of the Bank of Uganda, Louis Kasikende, warned if the current African macroeconomic picture persists, 12 African countries stand the risk of going back to the highly indebtedness realm.
When you look at individual countries, 8 countries, excluding fragile states, have got fiscal deficits which are larger than 6%. And 12 countries now have debt to GDP which exceeds 40%. Okay? So we may have to pray for another round of HIPICs if we are not very careful.
With these challenges in mind, the International Center for Growth in the next 2 days will offer research-driven solutions to African governments. The center will identify the relationship between research and policy implementation. Maurice Ogbete, GBC 24, Accra.
Now, one of the drivers for the drop in value of the cedi against the dollar is that many see the greenback as a form of investment. To this end, they buy the dollar and keep it for a while, expecting that it will appreciate against the cedi. Unfortunately, for such people, the head of Department of Financial Stability at the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Benjamin Amwa, says returns on cedi assets are more lucrative than dollar-indexed ones.
In the February Monetary Policy Committee, the committee increased the policy rate by 200 basis points. That was to address the depreciation of the cedi. It's to make cedi assets more attractive. So you are incentivized to buy cedi assets rather than say I'm saving in dollars. So you see the opportunity cost of not buying the assets was increased immediately. So if you do look at it, last year the depreciation was 14-point-something%, and then at the beginning of the year TB rate was 22%. So if you have bought T-bills, by the end of the year you have earned 22%. If you have bought dollars, you have earned 14%. So you incentivize people. We believe that if you give the right incentives, economic agents will do the right thing.
To many, the name Brazil evokes images of tantalizing football, but she is also a leader in ensuring global food security. GBC 24 takes a look at one of the drivers of the Brazilian economy, agriculture. Agriculture represented 5.5% of Brazil's GDP in 2011. Brazilian labor force is estimated at 100.77 million, of which 10% is occupied in agriculture, 19% in industry sector, and 71% in the service sector. In the space of 55 years, the population of Brazil grew from 51 million to approximately 187 million. This marks an increase of over 2% per year. In order to meet this demand, it was necessary to take the development of cattle and crop raising activities a step further. Since then, an authentic green revolution has taken place, allowing the country to create and expand a complex agribusiness. However, some of this is at the expense of the environment, including the Amazon. Roughly, 1/4 of Brazil's total catch is freshwater fish, of which a major portion comes from the Amazon River system.
The importance given to the rural producer takes place in the shape of the agriculture and cattle raising plan and through another specific program geared towards family agriculture. With regards to family agriculture, over 800,000 rural inhabitants are assisted by credit, research and extension programs. In the foreign markets, it answers for 25% of global exports of raw cane and refined sugar. It is the second highest producer of soybeans in the world, but leading exporter of the produce. The Samba nation is responsible for 80% of the planet's orange juice production and has since 2003 topped the sales figures for beef and chicken in the world. Brazil has the largest cattle herd in the world, with 198 million heads responsible for exports surpassing the mark of $1 billion per year. Brazil is not only a leader in agriculture but also in football and has won the World Cup 5 times than any other nation in the world.
The dollar is currently being bought at 3 Ghana cedis 84 pesos and sold at 3 Ghana cedis 10 pesos. Let's see how the cedi is faring against other major currencies. We switch to the commodity board to see the price at which gold, cocoa and crude oil is being sold. That's all by way of business. Thanks for watching.
Time now for the international news. About 12 women